This is my room at Galloway Health Center. Do I like Johnny Walker, the drink? It's all right. Yeah, I get teased a lot with that. We would go hunting for snakes.
Back in the day, they would have.
We put them in the milk box.
bring-
So one day the milkman came. He opened it. He said he wouldn't deliver milk anymore unless that.
It was full of snakes.
We were outdoors all the time, and we loved the outdoors. We loved the water, like streams, water. And it is dangerous because of the currents and things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We just never really thought about it.
At age 15, in a small creek, dove in off the bank and hit shallow water, and was immediately paralyzed. And my friend figured out I was in trouble, and he dove in and pulled me out. And then he ran up to a nearby farmhouse to call the ambulance. And I couldn't move from my upper chest down. So I can move my arms some, and not my fingers. No.
When you got hurt, you had been diving into that water, right?
Yeah.
Before that happened.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what really happened, if my foot slipped.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a deep dive instead of a shallow dive. But it just, as soon as I hit the water, everything just shut down. I was in a rehabilitation center 5 months.
I was away in college, and then I got married, and when I got married, that was the first time you came out of rehab.
See, before my accident, I was real into sports. And I was on the football team, the basketball team, and was first string, and my big dream was that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so the accident took that dream. I had to focus my energies in another way, and I think they became focused in a creative way. Writing songs with a friend of mine, Rich Rossi, who was a great guitarist. I went to college and he actually went with me. We were putting on little concerts.
I went to his family's, or their parents' house, and everyone was there. They're all musical. They all, Matt plays the piano, or Matt plays the guitar, Jeff plays the piano, Julie sings, Rick sings, and John actually plays the harmonica.
He likes to play blues music and bluegrass music and stuff that has the harmonica,
I was just amazed that this guy, he does all this stuff and he plays the harmonica too.
I fell in love with literature, then I started writing fiction. The writers that I admired the most were writers that had usually gone through some sort of struggle, suffering, disappointment. In other words, something of beauty can come from suffering. That's what I try to do in my own writing. As one writer I heard put it, Robert Morgan, who's a real good writer, follow the pain, because the pain is where most people live, and it's real.
I think John has the ability to deal with suffering in ways that other people maybe can't, obviously for obvious reasons, but he seems to be able to get into suffering and see the purpose in it.
I didn't want to be in school. I didn't like school. I didn't want to be sitting either. Which is ironic, because now all I do is sit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I knew I had to finish high school.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the big decisions, because the school didn't really want me to come back because of all the hassle that might be for them.
Mm-hmm. So
they wanted to tutor me at home, which in some ways felt more comfortable with me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really want to go back to school in a wheelchair, paralyzed. And I thought, John, if you don't do this now, you'll never do anything. You'll stay swallowed up inside the house. It was kind of scary. I went in and I just kept thinking, well, in 7 hours this will all be over. But actually, I made a bunch of new friends. There were different girls that showed interest, wanted to go out, And at first, I had a hard time taking to him. I still was adjusting to being paralyzed and everything. Like my whole freshman year, that's what my friend and I did. We just went out with different girls. There were girls from all over the place, from different states.
Try to get all
Yeah.
50 states.
I mean, it was fun because you'd get to know people from places you'd never been. Now, at the beginning of my third year, that I met Donna.
Wasn't she like a pageant winner, beauty pageant?
Yeah, she won Miss Liberty. She ended up on the front page of the New York Daily. So she was an attractive woman. We ended up getting engaged. And when we graduated, then we got married. And I moved here to Memphis and went to graduate school at the University of Memphis.
Yeah, I went to the wedding, and I was one of the best men. We all, wore sunglasses. So you can imagine Rich Rossi, myself, and Jeff getting John ready, getting him up in his chair, getting him dressed, getting his tux on.
My brothers weren't the best at that.
And then he had a bad cold. You had a bad cold,
It
too.
would take one nurse's aide to do.
Yeah.
It was like the
Four of
Keystone
them.
Cops. It was like all these, wait, no, not that way.
And I'd be like, don't put my pants up so high.
Because we had him up. He'd be like, get down. He'd be like,
I'm not an old man.
yeah, and then of all time, of course, then John would have to cough, because he couldn't cough by himself, so we'd do like this Heimlich. And so I'm going like this. We're driving down the road, and John's coughing. I'm going like this, pulling on me. He's coughing into this old oily rag. That's the only thing we could find. It was in the van.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. And then
So
your
one
leg
time-
bag broke in the church parking lot, so we just ran around in circles to empty it out. We did. That was another thing that we got it fixed, I wasn't the best at that kind of stuff.
Now that marriage ended after about 7 years, 8 years. I was writing the novella then. When I got the letters telling me that my novella was chosen as a winner, in the same mail I got documents saying you are divorced.
That is crazy.
So it just all coincided.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I don't know if I would have written Days of Captivity if I had not gone through that divorce.
She was a wonderful person, and had a great heart. John's circumstances and marriage is tough enough.
It was a good marriage for several years.
And the funny thing is, John calls me up and I think I'm getting divorced. I'm like, no way. My wife just told me she wants a divorce too. And I'm like, you're like, what?
Yeah.
They're good Christian folk,
I had to call my parents, and that was real hard to tell them. I mean, it was hard, but I had other things that kept me going. For years, I had a very, very busy schedule. And I was up every morning by 7 or 8, going and teaching, and then going to graduate school, and I'd get home at 10 o'clock at night. The first class that I ever taught I was part-time, and Creighton College hired me to teach one class. They needed someone to teach a freshman composition class.
We used to teach together, actually. So we had, a humanities class there at Creighton that had a literature professor and a history professor and an art and music guy. And I was the third, right? And he was the first. So we would be in each other's class all the time.
I remember staying up real late, studying Paradise Lost to be able to teach it. Milton is blind, or was blind, when he wrote Paradise Lost. And so that really struck me and that he can't understand why God has taken his eyesight, particularly as a poet, that he needs that eyesight. I suddenly felt this kinship with Milton and of my own woundedness, and I carried that with me now.
He just has a way of knowing these books and loving what the authors are trying to say and how they said it that I think teaches everybody.
I know him from school. He was one of my professors at Crichton College. I first met him indirectly. He was teaching chapel one day. And so all I remember is he came up there, and there was no podium, no nothing. He just came up there in his wheelchair, and he had like the Bible on his lap, and he would always like sit like this. I remember sitting there like leaning forward, and all I heard was, "Oh, those in him, it's the going of the Lord is going to. If you ever was," and I was like, I couldn't hear a single word, but his voice was so soothing.
He fell asleep. If I would have known this.
I created writing with you after that. I remember first day of class. You were old in there. You had all your books, and someone was with you. I don't remember who it was. It was one of your student helpers, and they like put all your stuff on the table. And I had heard all these legends about you. So I went in, and he came wheeling in there, and he spun around, and somebody wrote something on the board that you couldn't read, and he like just sat there, and the door closed, and he just sat there just like for like a couple of minutes, and we're just sitting there like, and then he just looks and he goes, "Reading is swimming in the ocean, and writing is drowning in it." And I was floored. Like immediately I was like, write that down, like really fast. And that was the whole class. It was like just when we weren't reading our pathetic excuses for writing samples, he was saying like just these sentences that just completely turned the world upside down. Do you remember any of this?
I remember critiquing your stories.
Oh gosh, we can skip this part. I would not be doing what I am now. My writing would not be where it is now if it wasn't for him. All right, so when I first met him, he was just this legend, this king amongst men, God amongst mortals kind of person that I'd heard about. But afterwards, if anybody asked me, who's a mentor to you as a writer, and it is him.
Well, The Days of Captivity, which is the one that I read, and he has a number of others that I have. That I actually have one that's original. John, you actually typed it yourself. You sent it to me at one time, and I kept it. I still have it.
I think I was trying to get money out of you.
Like a first draft.
Like I was like, hey, this is going to be a great work. No, I was a little bit hesitant with the novella Days of Captivity. As soon as I found out it won, I was like, I'd wake up at night and be like, oh no, I'm going to call the editor and tell him to pull mine.
Because you were afraid of your parents. Yeah.
My parents can't read that, and all these, quote, Christian friends at church, what are they going to think? Because it's a really gritty, just real, it's realistic, and it's tough, it's visceral, and it's...
When I first read it, I was like, he's gone over to the artsy side. That's what I thought.
And of course, I knew that students at Crichton, my students, would all want to read it. Apparently, there were stories going around about me. They were, because the narrator was an ex-Navy SEAL and, quadriplegic, so immediately they associated me with Smiley, this ex-Navy SEAL quadriplegic. I let the rumors go. I figured, add to the myth. I remember a pastor friend of mine who read it, and he came to me and he just said, I didn't like it. He said, it's too real. Novel writing, I'm more at home with because I can be more deliberate, and take people on these journeys and kind of wander.
Yeah, I'll be reading like one of your characterizations in one of your more recent things that you sent to me. I was like, get to the point. John's still going, but he has a massive amount of descriptive words and phrases, and it's just like, and I'm like, because I'm reading this and I want to find out what's going to happen.
And just finding out about John, learning about his life, it's just amazing to me that talk about the independent spirit, but it's the whole Walker family. It's just, they don't ever give up.